loves, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Tiarni, and welcome to Suddha Sanctuary.
So, our podcast is about sharing experiences, knowledge, and wisdom around health and wellness, and they're from people we love and are inspired by, as well as our own. And this is a beautiful, sacred space for you to listen, learn, and create your own path in life.
Yes, and we are forever grateful that you joined and shared this journey with us. If you would like to stay notified about when we post, please subscribe to our channel and like or comment if you feel inclined. This helps us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's begin. Hey everyone, it's Tiarni. Welcome to Suddha Sanctuary. I'm so excited that you can be a part of this journey with Maddie and I. Just a quick side note before we actually begin the episode. So as you know, this is our first episode, and this is the first time I've ever edited something like this, which I did find it a bit hard to do, especially with the fading in and the fading out of some parts of it. And I really do apologize that it's not as smooth as we would like it to be, but it is the best we can make it at this stage. If you have any advice on recording of a podcast and editing it, please let us know. It would definitely be a big help. And what's going to happen is a little bit of music will play, and then it'll basically jump straight into the podcast, starting with what our podcast name means and what it means to us. So I hope you enjoy our very first episode, and once again, thank you so much for sharing this journey with us. Thank you.
We just wanted to let you know that Suddha comes from the Sanskrit word which means purity, and sanctuary obviously to us is like a beautiful space and a safe space in which ideas can be spread and shared for all, basically. So in terms of what it means for us, Tiarni, what do you feel?
Well, for me, Suddha obviously meaning purity in Sanskrit. I feel that for me, when we are doing a podcast about wellness and health, I think of health as natural veggies, fruit, organic things that nourish our bodies. And then wellness, I think of stillness, meditation, and yoga, and being able to connect with our divine being and coming from a place of love in our higher self. And then sanctuary being a place where we can share our experiences, knowledge, and wisdom without judgment and having no fear. Just vulnerable expression, I guess. What about you, Maddie?
No, definitely. I feel that. I feel like, for me, I don't know. I feel like just the whole way like Sanskrit is just like this ancient sort of universal understanding. It's almost like when you hear a Sanskrit word, it's like you don't need a definition as per like a dictionary. It's just kind of like a feeling. But
Yes.
if I was to give a definition, I feel it's almost just like a sort of a bliss, and almost where you don't have to try. It's just easy and everything just kind of flows. And I feel as though sanctuary obviously just encapsulates a space in which that flow can happen.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I feel. But yeah, so that's basically how we obviously came up with our name, sort of sanctuary. Yeah, Tiarni, do you have anything else you want to say about the name? Like, I'm just thinking, I feel like that's what you guys would probably want to know what it means about. But I feel like, yeah, that's pretty much it.
And I think the sun in our little, I guess, display picture definitely brings that purity, the light, and I guess the love. And it shows that that's what our podcast is about.
Yeah, no, definitely. And little Tiarni made that little one, and it is so cute. We were like going through little options, and yeah, for both of us, I feel like that one just resonated really nicely. So, you know, it was very good. And so, yeah, basically today we're just going to go through some questions just for you guys to get to know us, I feel would probably be the best.
Yeah, first of all, Maddie and I we have never met in person. We met online. And I just wanted to say thank you to Raquel and Ali for creating that space for us to express and talk to like-minded people. And that's how Maddie and I met. So really exciting to be able to share this journey with her, and so grateful.
Yeah, no, definitely back to you. Like, it's just so cool because, you know, social media, there's usually like kind of a negative stigma around it, but it's almost like you can change and create it into whatever. And for like those girls to create such a beautiful space in which we connect, like, it's just so cool. So yeah, amazing things can come out of it.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
So I guess for you guys to get to know us a little better, we should probably start by talking about our journey. So Maddie, how did you start your spiritual journey, and what has it been like for you during this time, and how have you gotten to where you are today?
Basically, in terms of my journey, I feel like ever since I was younger, I've always just been kind of really interested in a lot of things around me. Like, curiosity has been a massive thing. And so, when new opportunities would come, I feel like I would just sort of jump at them.
Yeah.
And being a little kid, it's like you have nothing like censored, or it just is like all in. And so I feel like that definitely sort of drove the path in terms of where I started doing like my yoga and meditation with my mum.
Yeah.
And then that obviously expanded into other things. But yeah, it definitely came from, I feel like, having a lot of curiosity when I was younger, which is something I even try and pull on now. Because like when you see little kids, you're like, oh my gosh, like they're just like so pure and full of light.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like that definitely is the starting path for me. But there obviously have been massive shifts that I feel like we'll talk about later on. But that have definitely sort of steered my path, obviously for a massive reason. Like that's how we're here right now having this conversation. But yeah, I feel like life is it's really cool, challenging, like all the above at once. But when you almost like, I have this random analogy that just came to me then that I was like, oh yeah, I should share. So yeah, I always like say it to my friends when they're like, oh, they're just like so focused, and I'm like, if you genuinely think of it like a Google map, and you're like the little person, and then you zoom out and it's just like this massive world in the middle of space, it's like it just puts that massive perspective of like, there's me, and then there's all these thoughts in your head. You're like, oh my gosh, they totally consume me. And I'm just like, just zoom out on the map, zoom out.
That's so cool.
And I don't know, I feel like it just almost is also like coming back into that higher state of yourself, really. And that has definitely been something that I cultivated through that harder time in my life. But that analogy has definitely, I just say that and everyone's like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, it's random, but
that literally gave me goosebumps, and I was like picturing it as you were saying, and I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, no, what about you?
Well, I was like you. I started from a really young age. I always felt that I was intuitive and feeling like knowing things that I didn't know about, but I kind of knew about them for some reason, and I just always understood. And then I guess when I was younger, I was introduced to like spirits and ghosts and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where it began, because my family, they're pretty big on storytelling and when it comes to like spirits and stuff. And so it's kind of started there. And then moving on, getting older, like I was like, oh, and I was curious like you, and I wanted to investigate and learn more about spirituality and that sort of thing. And for so long, I just knew about the spirit world. And then a couple of years, like I think when I was finishing high school, my partner's mum, she introduced me to like Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now, and then I was reading all his books, and then that just literally opened up a whole new like perspective. And now I'm just focusing on being present, accepting people, and just coming from a place of love and balancing both the spiritual world with your soul and connecting to people in that place of love. So I started the same
that's
as
so
you.
good. Yeah, in terms of the spirits, like you were saying with your family earlier on, like how has that come about? Is that in like your traditions or?
Yeah, so we're Torres Strait and Aboriginal. So when I was younger, my family always told ghost stories, and they were always really scary. And because they used to go, when they lived on the islands, my dad and stuff, they used to go hunting and fishing and stuff like that. They would always run into like bad spirits. And I guess they're kind of superstitions in a way, but back then I was so like afraid of ghosts and that sort of thing, and you know, going out after a certain time at night. And now I'm okay with it, but that's where it all started, and with the storytelling. And I've never seen anything up there, which is good. And sometimes
that is good.
Yeah, but that's how it started.
Yeah, oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Because when we went on a trip through the Northern Territory and through Kakadu for school.
Wow. Yeah.
And we met with like all these elders, and they were just talking about how the spirits and all that storytelling, it's such an integral part basically of their whole like traditional lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there, and this was kind of in the beginning of, this would probably be like a year and a half ago. And I remember sitting there and I was being like, I just got goosebumps. I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's just so, it makes so much sense. It's like, there's not just this physical body, like it's so much more than that. And yeah, I feel like that for me as well, just learning like from other cultures and just basically all walks of life, like it's just everyone has something that almost relates to each other, and it's like, wow, there's that connection.
Yeah, and it's almost like you can just feel it in your heart and your soul, and it's like this deep knowingness. And especially if, like, when you were sitting with them listening to their stories, even just the space around you, I bet was so sacred, and you're like, whoa, this is crazy.
Genuinely, like, we were in the middle of just this national park. It was just, I feel like it may have been, we were in Alice Springs at the time, but I remember we took a massive long bus ride, and we were like, oh my god, where are we going? And the sun was setting, and we were like, oh, we're gonna get lost, like, who knows what's gonna happen. But yeah, it was like around a campfire, and we were led deep into the bush by this this traditional, basically this whole family was taking us on this tour. And yeah, it was really cool. And there were all the drawings and everything, all the art on the rocks, and it was just, it was like this other world, but it also just kind of intertwined with all our world, and we were just sitting there looking at each other and listening to it, and it was just very, very magic.
Oh my gosh.
No, it was very cool. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of crazy though, like in all cultures, I guess there's always something that can link it, even if it's like the most furthest thing away. It's like everyone kind of does have that deeper knowing, and it's like when you tap into that more, whether that be through like different practices or even just chatting with like you and like everyone else like in that same sort of community, I feel like all those little stories come up, and it's it's really nice.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been reading this book, the Ayurveda book by Sahara Rose, and I feel like so connected to Ayurveda. It's crazy. And the reason why I started reading it, because when I was listening to a podcast with her, she said it was like the sister of yoga. So I was like, I have to, I need to know about this. What is this? So just reading it and her talking about like Ayurveda and the meaning behind it and doshas, the energy, like that sort of thing, it resonated with me so much. And I was like, wow, maybe I should go and explore India, but this is like crazy.
Oh, that's so cool. I feel like I've always definitely wanted to know about Ayurveda. Like, I feel like my mum, she used to go on like yoga retreats and stuff, and they'd all be like Ayurvedic. And I remember she'd come back and she'd be like, oh, like we had this type of food, you know, with these little like all these little bits of like natural medicine. And then, you know, they'd have sessions where they talked about all the doshas, but I've really never dived fully into it. So that's really cool that you have.
Yeah, and I started because when your doshas are imbalanced, like you're obviously not eating the right foods and that sort of thing. So I found out that my vata is imbalanced, which is air and earth. Oh, sorry, air and space. And I started eating to help me, like my digestive system and that sort of thing, started kicking in and that sort of thing. And I felt so much better. And I've only been doing it for about a week. And I've been eating like more, I guess, rice, curries, anything that would help that digestive fire start and get going like it never did before. And now it's just going quite smoothly, and I don't feel bloated, I don't feel gassy. It's just so good.
Oh, that's amazing. I feel like I would definitely be like so keen to have a look at that, because all those things, they just, I feel like it's generally that thing when you read them, or even like watch something about it, it just resonates and you learn more.
Yeah.
And it almost just synchronistically works out most of the time
Yeah.
when it's meant to. I mean, you'll have the odd thing where it's like, oh my God, why didn't that work?
Yeah.
And then, but no, there's definitely some that's just like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, I agree. And like before I was eating like healthy, but it wasn't working. And then I started this and I was like, wow, I think this is it.
No, and there's so much info as well, because especially like when you start out on a health journey, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. But when you find something that's right, and I feel like it'll always change as well. I mean, for me anyway, like I feel like never one thing always works, but like, yeah, changing it up and finding new things that aren't the mainstream, like from your doctors and your clinical sort of side of things, I feel that's really cool.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
So now we're just going to dive into a couple of questions where we ask each other just to, I guess, get to know us. So Maddie, has there been any major shifts in your life that have changed you or shaped you?
Oh, yes, of course. I feel like there have been many. But I feel like a massive one that was sort of the catalyst for a massive change. I mean, like, because I am still in high school, so I finish obviously year 12 at the end of this year, but they were always like to us in year 9, they were like, okay, so girls, your friendship groups are going to change. And we were like, no, we're so tight. We're never going to lose each other. Like, we love each other. And towards the end of year 9 and start of year 10, that completely like crumbled around me. And I was like, oh my God, I did not know what to do with it. And at that time, I was like, these girls have been my best friends since like year 5. And it was horrible. And I was like, the massive reason, it was because I feel like I was changing and they were changing, and it was almost as though there was no sort of almost the same vibration anymore. Like I look at it now that way, but when I was in it, I was like, it's never going to change. This is horrible. Sort of like a downward spiral, but it was almost an upward spiral in a sense. Like it's amazing. And the reason it kind of happened was because like they were partying and they were going to a few more obviously parties and drinking, and I was like, that'll happen one day. But I was like, oh, year 10, like I didn't know if I was ready for that, and so I kind of stepped back from it. And then I'd go through things of like, oh, well, maybe I should, like, I'll just go out, who cares? But there was also that little murmur inside of me that was like Mads, that's not you, like that's not going to happen. And it's hard because that's always surrounding you, but there was almost like, I guess you could say, intuition now looking back on it, that was steering me away from it. But it was almost shedding of layers of just trying to fit in, because like you can only do that for so long.
Well, this is resonating with me like so much.
I feel like the more like the new people I talk to and meet and talk about it, there is usually something, if not a major thing or just like a slight little thing that has to do with friendships, because like everything always changes, especially in terms of people. Like as you grow, friendships change and grow, and I feel like that is definitely like a common link, I feel, with most people. But I don't know, that was just a massive part of my life, like through year 10.
Yes.
And
oh my gosh, me too.
I know, it's crazy. Year 10 was the year.
I guess because that's just like in between, I guess, like the lower grades and the higher grades. It's kind of like middle school, grade 10. So like that's when you're like, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit older and I guess I have to focus on this and that. And then, like you said, friendships just fall apart, and sometimes you feel like you have to try to fit in, but then at the end of the day, you're like, no, this isn't me, and I'm just going to stop and I'm just going to be me, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, and that obviously, that realization, that came for me anyway at the end of that sort of period. But it was almost like this, I remember I was doing yoga, and that's why yoga is such a massive thing for me, because it usually triggers some sort of realization and allows things to come up into my conscious. But I remember I was doing it and I had finished and I was like, yeah, like that was lovely. And I remember when I was doing yoga throughout this whole period, I would still feel this sort of heaviness and obviously like an insecurity I feel of mine that I was like, you know, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I finished and I was just putting my stuff away. And I remember seeing the sun and I was like, oh, like it's so beautiful. And the window outside of my room, not my parents don't really know about this. So if they hear about it, they're going to be like, Maddie, what the hell? Yeah. But I can jump onto the roof from my window.
Yeah.
So I can open that. I remember I walked out and I even have like the original video of it. And I was sitting and the sun was setting and I was sitting on the roof. And I remember I was just like, I was crying, but it wasn't a sad cry. It was almost just this massive shed and just a massive flood of energy of just like beautiful light came into me. And I was just basically, the video is just me realizing that I don't need those people in my life or that in my life at this point anyway. Like it may change later on, but and it was just kind of like all these events led up to that massive realization. And sometimes I watch that video and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's such a different person, but it's such an integral part, I feel, of what led me to here. And I look at it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for that because it genuinely was like a slap in the face. It was like, look, wherever it came from, whether that was me, a higher being, I'm not sure, but it was just like this, Maddie, you need to wake up and start living life for you, basically. So yeah, I feel like definitely friendships was a massive change and almost like molded me into the person I feel like I have become. And I feel like it's just a massive thank you to how it happened and I feel like it's such a massive thing for me to be able to say thank you because in that time it's like, oh my gosh, I hate this, like why is this happening? And yeah, I feel like to be able to forgive everything that happened, to be able to, you know, zoom out on your map and look at it and be like, oh my gosh, that none of that matters. Like just the fact that I'm sitting here breathing, like that is the most beautiful gift. So
yes, oh my god, that is so beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's basically it. That's just like a massive thing for me. And then I feel like one other like little thing that happened at the start of year 11. So this was after like school holidays.
Yeah.
I remember I was like to Mum, I was like, there's this yoga festival called Wanderlust. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's so cool. And so I went with Mum and I remember I was like, I didn't really hang out with the same people anymore. And I was trying to sit with other people, but I was still just kind of like, oh, it's just not the same. But I remember we'd finished all our little sessions because you do like a little run, then you have some time to do little activities, then your yoga, some other activities and like a little meditation. Like it's a really cool thing. So shout out to them for having that. Like it was awesome. And then I remember we went and had a look at all these little stalls that they have, little people with their awesome businesses selling amazing creations. And I remember I just looked across the sort of little circular space and there was this tent and it was like a crystal healer was basically this sort of sign. And I was like, oh, wow, because I'd always, you know, been like, oh my gosh, crystals, like they're so pretty, and I didn't understand, you know, like sort of the metaphysical properties of it. So I was just like, oh wow, colourful. And so I went over and the lady just like tapped me on my shoulder. I was like, oh, hi. She's like, hi, how are you? And instantly I just poured my eyes out and she was like, I know you're not okay. And I was like, I know, like, oh
my gosh, wow.
And it was just this magic moment. I was like, you are an angel on earth. Like, and she just gave me this massive bag of crystals for free that I still have to this day.
That's so amazing.
Really anchored that extra sort of other path, I guess, in my life in terms of spirituality. And she was like, you know, you feel as though you don't fit in, don't you? And I was like, oh my gosh, how do you know this?
But
like,
God, yes,
tears. And it was just a lot of hugging and tears. And so that woman is just amazing. If you can say that, if you can say woman, angel, she was just a massive like point. And I was like, oh my gosh. and my mum was crying. We were all crying, and the people are in the tent, you know, shopping, and they're like, "Oh my God, what is going on?" Like, these people. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I don't care. I was just crying, but you know how that happened at the end of sort of me realizing throughout year 10, and then that happening at the start of year 11. That was just another like solid foundation, I guess, for me to be like, I am on the right path, because these amazing synchronicities happened, and just for her to be able to know that and feel that energy, because she she's not passed away, she is a Reiki healer, and I didn't know that at the time, but whether that was her picking up, you know, on my energies, it's just like we all have this ability to communicate and feel things. And yeah, that was just a massive realization as well on behalf of like the crystals. It was like, wow, how'd she know? And it was just this basically a wow moment. And so I feel like those two hand in hand were definitely some of the most beautiful things that have happened to me. So yeah.
Wow, that's, oh my gosh, I'm literally mind blown. I have goosebumps, I have chills, I have everything. I want to cry. Oh wow, that literally reminds me of my very first psychic reading, and I went with my mum, and my cousin went a couple of days before, and she was like, you know, you have to go to this psychic, you know, you'll love her, she's amazing. And her name was Shelley, and she was reading my cards, and she was like, you know, is this your first psychic reading? And I was like, yeah, just going with it. And they were angel cards, and I loved them. They were like amazing. And then she was asking me questions like, are you being bullied, or have you been bullied? Is anyone jealous of you? And I was like, oh no, I don't think so. And I just looked at my mum, and I was like, oh, I don't really know. And then she said, she kept saying indigo, and I was like, okay, like, what does that mean?
You just sit there like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then she's like, so, and then she would like we'd talk about something else, and then she'd come back, and then she was like, so how is school for you? And I was like, it's good. And she's like, how are your friends? And I was like, well, and then that's when it started, and I started crying. And as much as I love my friends from high school, and you know, we still kind of talk like when we see each other and stuff, I love them so much, but I started crying. My mum just looked at me like she was so shocked, and I was like, I just feel like I don't fit in. Like, I try so hard, and it's just not there. And she said, yes, you are an indigo child. And I was like, what does that mean? And then when she told me, it just made sense. And like, indigo children, they don't, you know, feel like they belong, but they're on this earth to like seek out this mission to heal the world. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this makes sense. That sounds like me. And I didn't really want to put a label on myself, but when she said that, I said, okay, well, I can stick it out, I can do this.
Yeah, it's like there was like a higher reason, you know, like, especially, and I feel like when you go to psychic readings as well, you obviously can get, you know, your heebie-jeebies, but like they do have just such an amazing, I feel like, knowledge and intuition, and just to read people, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
No.
Hey everyone, this is just a quick break to talk about sponsors. Suddha Sanctuary comes from a place of love, and we currently don't have any sponsorships.
But however, if you feel like you would be wishing to sponsor us, and that this is in alignment with the podcast and you, feel free to email us with the info in the description.
So before we started recording our first podcast, we did ask the Your Own Magic Soul Tribe to see what questions they had from us to include in our episodes. And Jaden, who is really active in the Your Own Magic Facebook group, asked us, what are our personal self-care routines, and how do we align ourselves with the universe on a daily basis? Did you want to go first, Maddie?
Yeah, sure. All right. So I remember when I first read this personal self-care, I was like, oh, like, does that mean in terms of like washing my hair? And I was like, no. I was like, surely you guys know that like I would shower, like I'm not that gross. But I feel like in terms of personal self-care routine, I'm gonna take that in terms of more of a spiritual grounding basis. But a personal self-care routine for me would be when I wake up in the morning, that one of my favorite feelings is like being in that dreamy state of that sleep state and not fully awake. Like, I just love that feeling so much. And I just lie in bed, and I always sleep with a crystal underneath my pillow. And I always just choose that before I go to bed. Like, I just kind of look at them and I'm like, okay, what one wants to go under my pillow tonight? Like, I genuinely say that out loud. So I'm like, oh, if anyone else heard that, they'd be like, oh my gosh, she's crazy. But usually one jumps out at me. And yeah, basically when I wake up, I always pull it out from under my pillow and just look at it. And I don't know, it's quite a magic thing. But then I go sit on like this little, I don't know if it's called a puff. I'm not sure what they're called. But like, it's, just like this little meditation cushion. And it genuinely changes every day. But I usually just take a few deep breaths, whether that be like even like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. It changes depending on what I feel. But I genuinely just sit there and breathe. And sometimes it's really hard. Like sometimes like, oh my gosh, I can't focus. But sometimes it's really nice. But and sometimes I incorporate some Reiki in terms of some symbols and things I've been learning with the spiritual healer that I've been going to. Wow. She gave me a few to do, which are really cool, and I just draw them in the air and say their name 3 times out loud, and then just envision them coming into my physical body. And it's crazy. Like I can just feel it. Like I get shivers, and whether that be like heat or chills, like it's just an amazing feeling. But that is a massive self-care routine. I feel like I love establishing that in the morning. And sometimes I don't do it every morning, but like it's not perfect. But most mornings that's a massive self-care. And then usually yoga at around like 5:30 or like 6 at night time, just before like dinner and after I've finished my homework and stuff, because I never do homework after dinner. Otherwise I'm just wired and I cannot do anything. So I do a bit of yoga, but those are my 2 massive self-care care routines. So, what about you?
I get up in the morning around 6:20, depending on how long I want to sleep in for. And I usually just go into like our spare room, and that's where my yoga mat is set up and stuff. And I used to follow like yoga videos on YouTube, but then I stopped because I felt like it just wasn't working for me. So then I started just, I guess, creating my own practice and choosing the poses that make me feel energized in the morning and get my body moving and working. And so lately I've been doing just my yoga practice based on how I'm feeling, and I just flow with it. And then that usually goes for like half an hour, and then I do sit with myself, like even if it is for like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Just sit with myself, and then I breathe, usually in Shavasana. Oh, I love that pose.
Oh, amazing.
My favorite.
It's so good.
Straight after I usually like make some tea and then just start getting ready for work, and that's my main practice. Like it just creates my whole day, and without that I'd probably be out of whack or feeling tired. But I definitely need to do that at the beginning in the morning.
Yeah. No, that's cool how we both have something in the morning. I feel like even like talking to other people as well, like it's kind of a common thing, like to do something in the morning. It definitely does set out your whole energy in terms of the day. And basically in terms of the other question, how do we align ourselves with the universe on a daily basis? I feel like it kind of intertwines as well with the self-care. But in terms of the universe, I feel as though when I go down to like make brekkie, I usually have like lemon and hot water in the morning, which I love. And even though it's winter, I do it. Even though it's in summer, I go outside and I with like bare feet, and I just stand on the grass and basically look up at the sky. And if it's because it's quite dark in Melbourne at winter time in the morning. So, sometimes the stars are still out. And if the moon's like late in its cycle before like a new moon, the moon will still be out, and it's just a really beautiful time. And I feel genuinely so connected, and I just say, like I'm worthy of this, blah, and just, physical like external manifestations of what I would like to create for my day and things that I'm working on personally. yeah, I feel like that's a massive thing for me to connect to the universe, and just calling on like archangels and spirits,
Oh, yes.
and just like breathing
Yeah.
into the earth and thanking it for holding me. Yeah, I just love doing that.
That is so beautiful. And mine is basically the same. I literally call upon Archangel Michael all the time, whether it be for him to watch over my car while I'm at work, or just, watch over my family and that sort of thing. And definitely to be like being able to get back into alignment on a daily basis. I usually look out for those messages, the numbers 1111, 222, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I know that, okay, I'm on the right path. And if I ever feel like not aligned, I always think to myself, well, this is what I wanted, and I can't regret that, because, or whatever happened in the past, I can't regret the past, because that is what I wanted at that time. And yeah, I just feel I try and get connected with the earth. On my lunch break, I go to the beach if I can, and
just so nice.
Even taking off my shoes in the car is like grounding for me, because I work in an office from about 8:30 till 5, and I don't like having my shoes on. And then that hour on my break, I can just take them off and walk and read books and do whatever I want. And it's probably one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like taking off like my shoes, like even like I'm at school as well, and because it's winter, we have like a winter uniform, and I have like stockings and then socks on top because my feet get cold as. And then like, except when I'm not like outside and I'm sitting in the classrooms where it's heated, I generally like, oh my gosh, I just want to take all my stockings off and my shoes off. Like I just want my feet on the earth. So I feel like those moments are definitely like amazing for connecting with the universe.
And one I just thought of actually just then, where I park my car, it kind of goes up like a steepish hill, and where the gutter is, it's kind of like a ledge. So I always use that as like a balancing beam, and I like try to connect with my inner child and get back to that innocence and that purity where I can just play no matter where I am, whether I'm at work, I'm at home, or even if I'm just walking on the street or going to the beach, and just finding that inner child, your own inner child, and just flowing with that for even 5 minutes. Just, it's amazing.
Oh, I know. That's so cool. I especially love, I love going back to that inner child thing. Like it's just, it feels so lovely. So I definitely relate to that. And you can answer.
Okay.
All right. So we have a few questions here that we did like previous to making our little plan for today's podcast, but we thought it would be cute to ask each other a question at the end of a podcast. So our one for today is that if you could be any element on this earth, what would you choose and why?
Ooh, mine at the moment, can I say 2?
Oh, definitely. Go for it.
At the moment, I'm really feeling earth and fire. Earth because at the moment, I feel so grounded and so connected to my higher self, as well as my guides and my angels. And I love like walking on the earth, being out in nature, and just immersing my whole self in that moment when I'm out there. And fire because I'm learning to be, I guess, passionate about what I want, and finding that fire within me that I can move, and just, I guess, going with that, and flowing with. I always think of fire like a fire goddess who's sort of like divine, as like, yes, I'm gonna do this, and let's rise up, let's speak your truth, let's be authentic, let's just go for it, and who cares what anybody else says, just do it because you want to do it. And that's what I'm really feeling at the moment, is earth kind of around my feet, and then fire like around the top of my body. I just want to just give so much love to people and just put it out there, and yeah, that's where I find my fire.
Oh, I love that. All right, what ones would I choose? I definitely feel like earth as well, because at this current moment in time, I genuinely feel so like quite grounded in comparison to like my past stages where I was like, oh yeah, I feel really grounded. Like this is kind of another level for me. I feel like earth as well, just being able to feel that connection, whether that be when I am meditating or in yoga. I generally feel like a pulse of energy like all the time, and I feel like I would choose like water and ocean if I can combine those in a cheeky way. I feel like I feel like I'm in kind of a flow at the moment, which is kind of nice, and just sort of things are just leading on from one another in a quite a nice way. So I definitely would go with like water and ocean, and kind of looking at that natural stance of that we are also, like, we're made up of what, like 70% water. Like, it's crazy. And in terms of that 70% water, actually, what came to me, I remember I was looking through Instagram last night, and it was this, someone had posted like a screenshot of a tweet from Morgan Freeman, and he was like, how do like so many people believe you know, how the moon controls the tides and the oceans.
Oh my God.
And then they don't believe that, you know, the moon controls us when we're made of like 70% water. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a legend. That is so true. Like, I'd never thought about it in that way.
I literally think I saw that last night as well.
Oh, no way.
And I was like, that's right. That's right.
That's so cool. Oh. Yeah, no, I love that. That's awesome that we both saw it.
Yeah, that's so funny. Actually, just before we finish our podcast, our very first episode, which I'm so excited about, I actually want to tell a bit of a story. So,
go for it.
My sister and I, we've been wanting to do like a YouTube channel, not together, just like kind of separately. And I was like thinking, how am I going to do this? Like, what am I even going to talk about? I don't even know if it would be good. And for quite some time, I was like, maybe I could do like travel vlogs and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I haven't been traveling at all yet. So how is I going to do this right now if I've never been anywhere? So then I kind of like left that idea, and then I was like, maybe I want to do a podcast, but then again, what do I talk about? Will people listen to it? And I had that like underlying fear of like doubt and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so you posted in the Soul Tribe page, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna message her and be like, yes, I'm interested. And then I remember you saying like, there's a couple of other people who are interested, I'll let you know, and that sort of thing. And I said, yeah, that's cool. And then it was funny because you were just like, I'm just looking for someone who we can create something beautiful, someone who's committed and that sort of thing. And then at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't know if I can be 100% committed because I have like, you know, work and other things and stuff like that. So I kind of like took the time to really think about it. And then I even said that to you. I said, I don't know if I can be committed, but I can definitely be somebody you can interview. And you're like, yeah, that's cool. And then you messaged me again and you were like, hey, do you want to do the podcast with me? I've got another girl interested as well. Let me know what you think. And then I was like, oh my gosh, she really wants me. And then I was like thinking about it, and I was like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't even care. I'm going to make time for this, and I'm going to do it because this is something I want to do. And I was walking to work the other day, and I don't even know how it came like about in my mind. It just like popped up, and I was like, wow, because we're putting our podcast on YouTube, so it's free. Anybody can access it at any time, and it's just, I guess, so much easier for us. And then I was like, wow, we've got our own YouTube channel with the podcast, and we're doing a podcast, and we know what we want to talk about on it. And I was like, holy wow, thank you, universe. And I just said like, thank you a million times over. And I was like, I'm so grateful. Like, this is definitely meant to be. And I'm so excited to be a part of this journey with you, Maddie. And I can't wait for what's to come.
Oh no, definitely. It's worked out so amazingly. And I remember in terms of like posting that little message about a podcast, I genuinely, I feel like there should be, you know, like a moment where I was like, I'm going to do a podcast, like let's post, let's ask. But I genuinely can't remember. I feel like I was probably, maybe it was, I was on the bus back from like a netball tournament of that day, and I was listening to a podcast. I can't even remember. It was just a random one. And I remember being like, oh wow, like this is just so cool, the fact that they can reach so many people, and just their words really resonated with me. And just being able to have that community, I was like, that's what I feel inclined to do at this point in time. I was like, let's create, like let's do something. And I'm just so grateful for that, and to be able to reach out to lovely souls like you and create such a amazing platform for people to dive into when they feel is amazing. So thank you.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our first episode. If you'd like to connect with us on social media, you can find me, Tiarni, on Instagram at TiarniML. And you, Maddie?
Yes, you can also find me on Instagram. I'm So it's not the little line, it's the one that's lower. People always get that mixed up. So it's an underscore. Maddie, Maddie, and Crow with an E. So like the bird, but it has an E on the end. So yeah, that's our Instagrams down below for you guys. If you would love to check them out, we would both love to connect with you. I'm also going to have my Etsy shop linked below. I have some cute little things in terms of like prints there if you would love to purchase them. And even if you just want to message me on there, if you don't have Instagram, that is completely chill as well. But yeah, in terms of our socials, that's what's going to be in the description as well. Probably like a little summary of what our podcast is here today. And yeah, I'm so grateful to have this platform in which we connect with you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.